Time to get some ink on this. Where to start? I think I'll start with the boring bit first. Well, definitely don't just do as I did there. If you're right-handed and you're doing a pattern background like this, it's always best to start from the left and work your way across. If you're left-handed, go the other way. Don't just, pick them out at random. Don't know why I did it that way. Also best to work top to bottom. And this is all just to stop your hands smudging fresh ink. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky figuring out what to do with the background when you're taking it from sketch to ink. And I wasn't sure if I was keeping all the tiled lines in. I think it looks better with. One advantage to digital is you can just mess about. You can't so much with traditional. But it does teach you a little bit of discipline. Got slightly wiggly hands today, which is a bit annoying, especially since most of this is all nice smooth curves. We'll manage. Not sure what I'm drawing next. I try to make sure each thing I do is different to the one before, so I probably won't do something American. Although admittedly this one is another 50s car after we've just done a 50s car. We'll see, I'll have a look in my inspiration folder and see what there is. But hey, if there's something you want to see me draw, vehicle-wise, leave a comment. I'm open to drawing all kinds of things. Doesn't have to be cars. Maybe something will spark my imagination. Oh, I hate drawing big long lines like that. The key when you draw a line like that, where it's a very, very long run, is you relax your shoulder and you relax your wrist. And you don't tense up, and you just smoothly keep going and look a little bit ahead of where you want to be. I mean, you can use the French curve instead, which is that brown plasticky template I used in the previous video for the Daihatsu B, but once you get the hang of it, it's just easier to do it by hand if you can. Unless you're after that level of precision, and I'm not. I like a little bit of a hand-drawn appearance, a bit of variation in my lines. I think that's part of what plays into my particular art style. The world is imperfect, so I feel like my artwork should be too. This is easily one of my least favourite bits of inking, is concentric circles. It's so difficult to get them right. Because your eye is looking for perfection in form and you can't always manage it. I'll just have to do getting there. That's the primary ink run done. I'll have to go around and do the secondary ink. I'm going to have a bit of a think about that before I do it. I've got myself a bit into the details here, so I need to just step back from it and then come back and redo what I want to do. I'm still thinking about colour schemes on this as well. Definitely not going to be blue because our last piece was blue, but I'm not sure what colour I am going to go with yet. I've got some ideas. We'll see what colours I've got. Fun thing when you get a bit older, I have multiple pairs of specs. So I've got these ones, which are my single visions, and then I've got these ones, which are my varifocals. And I was trying to figure out why I was struggling a bit to see what I was supposed to draw here. And it's because I had my single visions on, and I need my varifocals for close work. So just, you know, aging artist problems. The varifocals are really good because I can look down at the page and I can look up at a reference, and I don't have to wait for my eyes to refocus. Anybody who has varifocals or similar will know the struggle. Yeah, okay, we're going to do the secondary round of inking now and get all of these details to pop out a bit, because right now it's just a little bit flat. We've got a little bit of shading on the grill, but yeah, everything is just sort of blending into itself a bit at the moment, and we don't want that. Oh, this is that empty pen. I'll take rid of that. Or is this the empty pen? I don't know, this pen might be empty, we'll find out. Oh no, looks like that's okay. I've got one challenge here, which is the bonnet line here. I want the roof to look like it's pushed back and that this is more prominent than it is. I'm just a bit concerned if I put a very heavy line in here, it might look like this is one vehicle and this is another, which I don't want. I think I know how to do it. On this side we've got a single line weight, and you can see that the body of the car here sort of just blends into the windscreen. On this side I've done the heavier line on this portion of the bonnet, and then where it steps up I've faded it out towards the mascot in the middle, and that just pushes this part of the car forwards. But where we get up here where the light's going to be brighter, and things like your shadows and details are going to merge a little bit, you get a bit of bloom sometimes, that just helps, you know, give you that idea of how things are layered. Wow, I really need to practice describing these things, because I don't really think about it when I do it, I just do it. So explaining it to you is a new challenge. Yeah, that's much better. Okay, that's come together pretty well. Let's see, I want to put a bit more here. That was too heavy. Bother. That's a very good example of one of the problems with traditional linking. If you slip just a tiny bit, you end up putting a line down that you don't really want. So, I can't undo that now. That's a mistake that I've got to embrace. And one of the ways I've found that helps is to just look at the rest of your inking and see what you can adjust elsewhere to make that look deliberate. Which is what I shall try to do, and I think I'm just going to employ it on these headlight trims. And we'll just make it look like these trims sit a little bit proud of the headlights, perhaps. You are always at risk when you're using a physical media of making a mistake, and the best thing to do is not to panic about it, because it happens. I've had mistakes on pieces that, you know, you feel like, oh no, I've ruined it, and you feel like you have to start over, and then you find out that actually it gives you a different design in the background, or you can turn it into an accessory, or, you know, there's all kinds of solutions available. So never panic if you make a mistake. challenge with these headlight strands as well is these headlights are Frenched in, so the trim around here should be sort of beveled inwards, and then you have the dome of the headlight. But because this is completely face on, you can't really see it. So I'm going to try and play about with line weights here to sort of suggest that that's what's happening. It's tricky. Okay, I think we got away with it. Right, so what is left? It's funny, I thought this one was going to be a lot harder than the B to do. I thought this was going to be a lot more complicated and challenging, and actually the B was a lot harder. Funny how that works. Oh, if you haven't seen the B video, do check out the playlists. There is a playlist for artwork. And just the channel in general, really. There's all kinds of things on here. I do a little bit of everything. With this being a symmetrical front end, as most vehicles are to be fair, it is tempting when you're doing hatching like this to do some shading to, if you've gone one direction on one side, go the opposite direction on the other side. I've tried it. It usually doesn't work, and I know it won't work on this one because you'll end up with a bizarre optical illusion where this will stop looking like shadow and start looking like a pattern, which I don't want. So I shall continue this in the same direction all the way across. There we go. We are all inked. I will just leave this to rest to make sure the ink dries so I can clean all the sketch off as usual. Pick my signature on it somewhere. I've not figured out where I'm putting that just yet. Ink is all dried, I've cleaned off all of the pencil work and we are ready for colour. I've had a look through the various inks I've got available and I've made a decision about the colour for the car. First though, I need to do something about the background. And I'm going to go back to blues because I think that's going to contrast well with what I've got in mind. I'm going to keep this fairly simple. So I sort of want the background to look a little bit like, if you've ever seen those sequin boards that you used to have on like game shows and at the arcade frontages at the seaside, that sort of thing. I think I want to lean into something along those lines. So it looks like this background is made up of panels that are all sort of moving around. And probably the same colour, but the way the light catches them, they all look a bit different. It's not exactly what I was going for, but it's close enough. I'm limited somewhat by the colours I have, unfortunately. I hope this one's got some life left in it. Oh yeah, that's okay. And this one's a gold ink pen. I'm going to see how this looks when it's dried. I might go over it with some gold paint. The only problem with using metallics is whenever I scan a piece, obviously, because you're scanning with light and metallics are reflective, they don't always scan very well. They very often scan quite muddy and not at all sparkly and lovely. And there's not a great deal you can do about it. Oh, and unlike the Copics I've been using, this one's a Faber-Castell artist pen. The felt tips on these are a bit more coarse. I don't like these as much, I'll be honest. So I don't use them very much. They also don't blend. I think these are pigment ones rather than being alcohol based like the Copics. So these are more for like if you want a very definite line on something, or like here where I want these very definite little diamonds. That's what these are for. Okay. Yeah, it's a very, very flat metallic that. It doesn't really show up on camera very well at all. It's actually more brass-like than gold, but again, that's okay because that does fit in with the sort of look I want here, so I don't mind. So I had a look through the colours I've got, and I haven't got enough greens because the problem is with my greens, they really aren't a great range. They're all over the place because I've just bought them as I've needed them, and I can't really make one good green out of these for the car. They're too wide a range of tones between each, and they won't blend very well. And I don't think it will work as nicely with this background. Pink, however, I've got quite a large range of these sort of baby pinks, which I quite like. They would be correct for the era. And I do also have some shocking pinks, which again would be correct for this kind of car, but I don't have enough of the really bright ones. So I think we're going to go with a more muted pastel-y tone. I think that will work quite nicely here. And as with the bee, and pretty much every other piece I do, I'm going to start with the very palest colour I've got, which is called pinkish white, which barely shows up at all, but it's a really good base colour. Now, unlike the bee, this one's a bit harder to follow the body lines on, because we're looking at it face on, so the body lines aren't really where you'd expect them to be, so that's a little trickier. And just like before, my pens are running out again. You know what it is, it's because you fill them all up at the same time, so of course they all wear out at the same time. One of my favourite things about Copics is you can just refill them. So you don't have to keep going out and buying new pens and making more plastic waste. Obviously there is some plastic waste because when your refill runs out you are left with an empty container, but it's reduced. You're not throwing away lots of nibs and pen cases and that sort of thing, and I appreciate that. Just wish they were a bit easier to get in a physical store in the UK. Where I am at the moment, there's not that much out there shop-wise, and certainly not an art shop local. So I tend to have to get everything online, which I don't like doing so much. Ironically, most of my business is done online, but I myself prefer to do things in the real world. Gen X problems. I think my eventual goal here is to lean more to a warmer pink than a cooler pink. So I'm going to bear that in mind as I do the next stages. And I think I'm going to jump straight to my darkest pink here and just set my shadows, which are fairly complicated on this one, much more so than you would think because of all these curves. And when I'm doing this with the pen like this, where I'm just waving it around and you're wondering what maybe I'm doing, it's sort of me visualising where the shapes are going to go before I commit. Because obviously I can't just sketch on the shape I want, because then I can't remove the pencil. So you just sort of have to trust that you know what you're doing and that you're going to get it in the right place. More of those things where I don't normally think about them until I see myself do it on camera. And then I have to think about why am I doing that. I feel like I need a slightly harsher shadow line on here than I've got, and I can't do that with the Copic pens. I don't have the right colour.
we'll have a look in this little pot. Now these are a different range of pens. These are the Faber-Castell ones, and these do not blend at all. Some of them, they don't look like the colour that they are. So I do have to test these on a separate piece of paper before I use them. But I think I've got the colours I need. Yeah, see, that's really yellow. That's nothing like what this is. So you do have to be careful with these ones. Copic are much better at getting the colour right. That one's not bad. That's the same one. Wow, that one's really brown, really orangey brown. So sometimes it does make sense to do a little sample, just so you know you've got the right colour. At least with the Copics, if I've got slightly the wrong colour, I can usually just blend it out to what I want, but these I definitely can't. I just want to add a little bit more definition in here than I've been getting. Pink can be quite a tricky colour to get right. It's a bit like yellow. If you shift too far one way or another, you end up with brown or orange or like faded red rather than actual pink. So keeping yourself on track with it can be very difficult. This was definitely the right colour. I think that'll do, in fact, on the pink. I've just lifted it up and sharpened it as much as I wanted to. Don't want to go too far with it, because I've got lots of other details that need to go in here, a lot of chrome. Yeah, I'm happy with that. This wasn't exactly the colour I was going for, but I'll work with it. Oh, this pen is a colourless blender, so there's no ink, no pigment, nothing in these pens. They're just the solvent, I guess it is, that the Copics use, and they are fantastic for blending things and to a degree erasing. They're not perfect at erasing, but if you make a little mistake, sometimes you can actually clean it up with one of these. And they're also pretty good, like here, I just wanted to tone that yellow down, and it's done a really nice job of that. That's just what I want. All the chrome now, I think, and goodness me, there's a lot of it. And I know this grey looks like I'm not doing anything at all, but trust me, I am. It's just a very, very pale grey, and there's a lot of colour happening on the page, so you don't really see it. And I've just noticed a bit of bodywork I've completely missed. Completely missed the valance underneath the bumper here. Not sure why. Sometimes that just happens. Oh, I just made another minor mistake there. Shouldn't have coloured that one. Do you know what? This piece has had so many minor mistakes on it. I don't know why. It's just how it goes with some pieces. But when we're done, apart from you watching this, nobody will know. Because the mistakes become part of it. They become part of what makes the image the image. That's part of the fun as well of hand-drawn things, is meeting that challenge of when you make a mistake, how do I fix it? How do I incorporate this into the piece? Does it change what the piece is? Now, you can't get too highbrow with this style of illustration, obviously, but with any artwork endeavour, you know, you're a human being who's putting a lot of effort into it. AI doesn't count, and that means that, you know, you are personally invested in the piece that you're working on, and so it's important to make sure that any mistakes you do make, you can actually incorporate that into the end result. And every now and then you'll make a mistake that actually makes a piece, that makes it better than what you had in mind initially. You know, a colour might go in just the wrong place, or so you think, and then you realise, oh wait, if I do it like that, that actually works. I think I've learned more about light and shading and colour choices through mistakes than I ever have through trying to understand colour theory. I have a lot of respect for those people who do understand all of the technical side of it, but I'm not one of those people. I just do whatever feels like it's the right thing to do, because that's how I work. Right. I keep disappearing off screen, don't I? Sorry about that. When I'm actually drawing, it's I can't look at this and look at the camera at the same time. I don't yet know what colour I'm making the ground, so I am, because of how big this chrome bumper is, I am going to have to put some extra work into it, because it is going to pick up whatever colour I do down here. Yeah, so I'm going to have to think about that. It's probably going to pick some of the pink up off the car. Not a huge amount, but some. Trust the process with the headlights. Trust the process. I was reminded quite a while ago of a car where, I don't know how they'd done it, but the reflector bowls actually looked like they were gold rather than silver. And I don't think they'd actually changed the colour of the reflector bowls. I think they'd done something on the surround somehow, and it was just an optical illusion. A bit like you would see about 10 years ago-ish, you'd see a lot of Golfs with the black X inside the headlights to make the headlights look like they were blacked out. That's the thing nobody does anymore. But yeah, I just wanted the headlights to look a little bit more amber, a little bit more cat's eye like, because I want the car to have this sort of pink and gold theme to it, which I feel like it now has. And now, speaking of things people don't do anymore, going back to the 2000s, there was in either Custom Car or Street Machine, I can't remember which magazine it was, and I think it was a dark metallic green Mercury, probably, and it had a big grille like this one's got, but with chunkier teeth, and one of them he had gold plated, and it's always stuck in my mind. I can't remember who it was from the article. One of you watching this will know, but yeah, I thought I'd steal that idea for this one, because I think that was a pretty cool idea. Well, clearly it must have been, it stuck with me all these years, and I thought that would be a fun little addition to this one. Right, I'm going to black this out. Then we've got the raccoon tail to do. We've got the shadow underneath the car. And then I've got to put a little bit of colour into this chrome of some description, just to tie the whole thing together. I think I made the right colour choices. I like the background with this pink. Yeah, I'm really glad I didn't go green on this one actually. I don't think it would have worked quite as well. Really changes the look of the front of the car in a good way. I'm going to go with some blue on the background, but not the whole background. And there's a reason for that. This probably won't scan very well. Unfortunately, it seems to be that any kind of blues, especially pale blues like this, don't scan very well. The scanner can't seem to see them properly. Which means when you see this piece in the shop and in prints, it's probably going to look a little bit different to this, because I'm going to have to mess about with levels and things. But I shall do my best. I really like working in blue. I wish I had a better way of actually scanning it for prints and that sort of thing. But it is what it is, I guess. A bit of a nuisance. Yeah, I want it to feel a bit like the blue here is a reflection of the wall, a bit like, so like maybe this is a polished floor that the car's on for a photograph. Maybe they've done that thing where they flood the floor with like 1/4 of an inch of water just to give you a mirror for it to sit in. Something like that. But I can now pick that blue up in the chrome, which will help ground the car in the scene. Just have to make sure that we... Now this is the fun thing with chrome, because it's reflective. When I'm putting the blue on that it's reflecting off the floor, I have to pretend like the light is coming up, because that's sort of what it's doing. The light is bouncing down on the floor and then bouncing the colour up into the chrome from underneath. So you wouldn't get the blue on the top, except for where you would. Chrome is weird when it comes to reflections. So the way I approach it is I just sort of guess. And when it looks about right, I know it's about right. I mean, I have got some education on where it should go by looking at lots and lots and lots of photographs and chrome things, and just sort of getting into my brain where it should be. And I know with chrome, a lot of the time, the places it should be are the wrong places. So like the top part of this sunken in section in the middle here is blue, because that's how the reflection would work in a simplified way. If I was to do the chrome completely accurately, it's difficult. It's, yeah, I have a lot of respect for people who can actually do it, and do it well. I'm okay at it. I can make something that looks like it's sort of chrome-ish, but I'm certainly no master. So again, with the bumper here, I just want to put a bit of pink in, because on the reference I did notice that there was a little bit of a bodywork reflection there, and just a little bit on here. I think this leading edge of the bonnet would also show up on the very, very top edge of the bumper, because the bumper does stick out further than the chrome grille, which probably means I need to put a little bit just on this top edge where the bodywork is. And of course I'm doing this after I've blacked in the grille, so you know, no risk of smudging everything or anything. Just have to be careful. There we go. Thank you for joining me on another one of these artwork adventures. I'm actually quite enjoying putting these together at the moment. As I'm recording this, I'm really close to 500 subscribers, and that's kind of your first YouTube milestone. That's when you start unlocking certain features. So if you haven't yet, please do subscribe. You'll get me just over that threshold, and then it's going to get the channel, well, it's just going to be easier for the channel to grow, because YouTube will take it more seriously. I need the view time up quite a bit more than we're at the moment before I start being able to do things like memberships and super pays and all that kind of thing. But hopefully this will all happen soon, and we'll get there. This original artwork, I will scan it in, so there will be prints available of it. I can't guarantee the blue is going to behave. I'll do my best. The original will also be for sale on the website. My website is here, so do be sure to pop over there and see what I do. It will give you a good idea of prices and other options that are out there, and a little bit of news and that kind of thing. Check the description box, there's lots of links in there, and thank you very much for joining me this time. I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.